The parties and the TV specials are everywhere, and it's now probably about a $9 billion industry. But for at least several million people in this country, the numbers nobody really knows, because witchcraft and Satanism are pretty quiet, pretty secretive, and many of the people practicing the occult arts, paganism, witchcraft, druidism, Satanism, and the other branches of that don't necessarily advertise that that's what they're involved with. But for them, Halloween is a truly profound and sacred time. It's one of their holiest seasons of the year. There's one little magazine here that I have. I've had this since like 1991, thereabouts. It's How About Magic, a magazine for pagan youth that came out during Samhain, which is their name for Halloween, means season's end, summer's end, in 1991. And this was an article written by a young Wiccan, a young pagan, who said, "Did you know that when you celebrate Halloween, you're in fact celebrating is the pagan festival of Samhain? Halloween is a shortened form of hallowed or holy evening, the night before the ancient Celtic festival of summer's end, which is the meaning of Samhain. Far from being a time when pagans rush around scaring people with horrible masks, witches were never like that anyway, Samhain is one of the 8 sacred festivals of the year. It marks the time when harvest is over and the earth begins to settle down for her winter fest." She goes on and on about the peace and the stillness being achieved, a time to remember quietly the loved ones who have died and find comfort thereby. We're going to see in a moment that they do a lot more than just sit by and remember them. But then she continues, "It is therefore distressing to pagans to see this sacred time used for the peddling of grotesque consumer goods, which distort our festival into a sick joke. If you buy an ugly witch or spook mask or such like, you're taking part in making a mockery of our religion. Imagine the outcry there would be if a Jewish or Muslim festival were insulted in this way." Yeah, but she doesn't point out that nobody would say much if it was a Christian festival insulted in that way, which it frequently is. "It is also deeply offensive to pagans that ill-informed Christian fundamentalists often use this time to make vicious and absurd attacks on pagans and any who celebrate Halloween, accusing us of worshiping the Christian devil, Satan." You need to know that most pagans, most Wiccans, do not acknowledge Satan. Therefore, they do not believe that they're worshiping him. So in a sense, she is true. Unlike the Satanists who know exactly whom they're worshiping, even though some of them believe that he's just a myth or the personification of evil or an expression of the fallen animal evil, well, they wouldn't use the term fallen, nature within themselves. The Wiccans, the vast majority of them, do not acknowledge Satan. Clinging to the fundamentals of the faith the way we used to. Really, which fundamental is he going to give up? The virgin birth, maybe the resurrection of Jesus? There are a number of them that he could be dumping out, and I think he's on the verge, at least in action, if not in word, in dumping more than he realized of what Christianity is all about. And at what point do you recognize you no longer are holding to evangelical biblical Christianity, but have embraced doctrines of devils and the tenets of witchcraft?